Well, welcome here to Chapter 13. Again, I'm Shane Boyer,
And I'm Megan Humphrey.
and Megan's going to talk a little bit about some aspects within Chapter 13, and we'll just have a little discussion and see where that goes. But she's just going to kind of give an outline here a little bit of 13 and some of the key points of that. So you can go ahead and feel free to talk about what you have here for Chapter 13.
All right. Well, given the increasing concern with the abilities to avoid advertising, which many consumers are trying to do at times, but now advertisers are turning to other alternatives in order to get their message across to prospective buyers. Over the past few years, there's been a significant growth in the use of support media based on traditional media and other new forms of media going into whether it's the digital billboards or more known as guerrilla marketing, which is becoming more of an issue over time. So as Shane kind of said, we're going to be going over traditional media, promotional product marketing, and branded entertainment with product placement and product integration. So first, going into the traditional support media, this is primarily focused on out-of-the-home advertising and pretty much on billboards and outdoor forms of advertising. As we can see from figure 13.1 from our textbook, billboards, street furniture, alternative media, transit, and other forms of radio are seen as outdoor media. And then later, as you turn the page, figure 13.2 goes into more of a graphic detail of the percentages of billboards and street furniture, which constitute about 71% of the outdoor billings. So that's kind of showing how billboards are like the major way that consumers are seeing advertisers promote their business or their products. So a couple of examples, as I'm sure Shane can kind of go into some examples himself, is I have like two different extremes of how advertisers are using billboards. One of them is, well, right now it's the morning, so thinking of Perkins as you're driving along, a lot of restaurants use billboards to create awareness of some of their foods that they have and also like where they're located. So that's one way of how billboards are more of an informative side of outdoor advertisement. But to another extreme, the North Iowa Tea Party, back where I'm from, put up a billboard that linked President Obama to Vladimir Lenin and Adolf Hitler. So that's kind of showing the other side of the extreme side of using outdoor advertisement in a way that advertisers and people shouldn't be using it. Yep. So I'm sure Shane probably has a couple of comments on some of those uses.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages with the out-of-home advertising and the billboards. When you look at the coverage area, there's a wide area that you can cover within that local market. You look at a billboard or a sign in Times Square. I mean, you could be reaching 1 million people on a daily basis, basically, and so those are some of the aspects that helps it. The frequency, frequency can be good and bad, but in this advantage-wise, you might have a billboard that's up on a road for 30 days, and a lot of times that's the cycle. There's around a 30-day cycle of out-of-home advertising, and so you've got the same people driving by or looking at that every day or every few days, and so that frequency puts it into their mind, that product recognition of whatever it might be. There's a lot of geographic flexibility. Where you can segment out certain aspects. You might have a sign in the north that you probably wouldn't have in the south, or even locally. Just you want to hit a certain portion of Mankato or those aspects of southern Minnesota. But the flexibility you can put in places, but there's also a lot of laws that pertain to that. One good example would be the Cambria silo. I don't know if you've heard of that, but on 169, it was a silo, and in years and decades ago, it was 7-Up, and it was always a pop bottle, and it had faded away and hadn't been used for years. But Cambria resurrected it in a silo and made it, but the law permitted. The law said you couldn't do it, so it can be a big court issue. It actually got just settled here recently, where they were able to keep it up because of some things that they did to the property. And so that's one example of a law permitting, and things like that. Creativity is another advantage. It's something different, and it draws attention to you. To your ad, and with that, more advantage, more creativity, it increases the awareness, and which increases the impact. And so that's a few other efficiencies. The cost per million or cost per thousand is relatively low. You got a lot of people, every time someone sees it, it's going by. So it is relatively low in cost. The effectiveness is fairly high, and production capabilities are usually pretty fast, and that's a good advantage. Especially, you mentioned the digital. So the digital, you can change that. Like us with the Sports Institute, we had a digital board within the mall, out on the road, and we could change that, and they could have it up within a day. A lot of billboards are pretty quick. You can, you got the graphic stuff that you've got to create, but usually they can do it fairly quick. And then the timeliness. You can have things at the stores, or you're riding in vehicles, or you're seeing things, and you can say, okay, we're advertising, and this is timely of what we're trying to do. So those are a lot of the advantages of it. You look at some of the disadvantages, what's called waste coverage, and waste coverage is, I might put a billboard up advertising for, say, the Minnesota Gophers, and you drive by, you're not going to look at it, and that's waste advertising because you're not a Gopher fan. Mm-hmm. And so you don't know who it's all out there to. It's not specific. It's just out there, and so many other people can bring that up. So that's waste. One, a disadvantage, waste, and limited message capabilities. A lot of times people are speeding by. They're going fast. They might not see it. So there's some of that. Wear out, and the wear out would be not necessarily the physical wear out of it, and sometimes billboards and some of those do, and like I mentioned, the silo eventually wore out. But the wear out of seeing it every day, pretty soon you become oblivious to it. Yeah. You know what I mean by that? There are some other costs, and it could be a negative. Costs are low for the number of people, but yet a lot of times the production costs are fairly high. So the costs can be both good and bad, and it's hard to measure who's seeing it and what the impact is out of that, and so those are a lot of the different disadvantages of that.
And then based off of that, as a discussion question that I found in the back of the book, it states how digital out-of-home media has been increasing or has been experiencing a rapid growth. And so we've already given some examples of digital media, but then kind of just going over how it does have an advantage over the traditional media.
Probably one of the, like you said, the biggest is the digital media. Even the billboards are going digital, and there's lots of banks have the digital thing out in front, and the time and temperature, all that. But they're also adding in other aspects and other ads, and so the digital has really become a big part of that. Sports arenas and concerts. Again, there's lots of digital things within that. Again, flexible. You can tailor your messages. You can turn it around real quick and put it into real time. So digital is really, and you can take a digital board and put it on a cart and put it out on the side of a street. You can move them around a little bit. So those are you can advertise an upcoming game. I know, like here in Mankato, there's a bank right by where the Mankato Moondogs play. And they'll put up there the day of the game, attend the game or whatever, the events that are going on at the ballpark. Four main things about advantages, when you start looking at this, again, it's attracting attention. You can change it, the message very quickly, and you can put it in a number of locations, and it is affordable. So those are some of the advantages within all of that.
Okay. Moving on to not just how traditional media is just based upon out-of-the-home advertisements like we talked about, but it's also the in-store media of what we find while we're grocery shopping or shopping in general. And advertisers are using these in-store medias for display cases, aisle displays, store leaflets, and also the small TVs that we see as we're shopping. Right. And their reasoning for using this, as we can see through an integrated marketing communicator, is that because they can reach the customers at their point of purchase, and the consumers are more than likely, as the books say, like 75% of those who notice the ads are likely to purchase the product because it's right there, it caught their attention. And like with food and whatnot, it looks good on the TV screen and makes them want to get it themselves. So then I guess a question for you would be kind of like, do you see in-store ads as being like an effective way to advertise?
Yeah, I really do. You get into the, like you said, it makes it look good or whatever, and there's all kinds of other ways that you can advertise too, and there's kind of some sampling and some of that stuff too. But the kiosks, if you have a kiosk or somebody there, that's right there within the store, carts and displays and banners, all of those types of things, you can, that in store is adding to it. Again, the LED and the video displays, you can change things. Even now on an in-store, it's kind of stretching it a little bit, but even scanning the products, you have the little scan codes and stuff, and if you have your phone, you can scan it, it sends it to the website or gives you the price and, gives you more information on that product. And so that's even evolving as an indoor, in-store type of a, point of purchase type of a thing where lots more information being out there. So yeah, so all of us, you take a look at all of this, and we'll kind of wrap up this first segment about the outdoor and the indoor. There's lots of benefits that are out there. Some disadvantages, but you keep seeing more and more.
Yeah, more and more of it appearing. So that ends this first segment.
Okay.
All right, so welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about promotional product marketing, and this is known as the more prominent way of how advertisers and marketers are turning towards trying to promote their business or their brand. And so we see these on a daily basis, whether it's through gifts, awards, prizes, and I even brought in some examples of how the University of Iowa gets their brand out, as I know Shane is going to love these.
Yeah, she dug in the garbage to get these out. No, I always give her a hard time about Iowa. Anybody from Iowa deserves to have a hard time, right? No.
Right. So as we can just kind of go down the line of how Iowa uses teddy bears just to kind of draw in kids and putting their logo on it, and it just kind of stands out. And I got this at a football game, so that's just kind of showing when you're actually at a sporting event, some of the promotional products that they'll give out. The same thing with this claw that Shane?
Yeah.
And of course, we all see T-shirts and other sporting or clothing items, and those are also known as the promotional products. So I don't know if Shane has some advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, one of the things that I was kind of known as the pen person over at MSU, and I know you always want the good pens that I'd give out, but the pens are another example, and you mentioned that. This is actually a one from Creative Ad Solutions where we would get the pens, or that's their job, is to create all of these, and and so I like pens. One of the reasons is because you can leave it. You can leave it with a waiter or a waitress at a restaurant, because they're always losing pens, and then they give it to someone to sign their receipt, and it's branding, and so people do use pens a lot, and like I said, I'm kind of a pen junkie when it comes to that. But pens were a big thing for me. Golf balls, I'd give out when I was in development. I'd give out golf balls with our logo on it a lot. And again, what type of clientele that you're giving them to, and mugs are always one that it seems that people give out. Bobblehead. I mean, you keep going on and on down there. The big thing about the products like this is you want to make sure that they're used. Okay, you don't want it to be trinkety and junky that they're just going to throw it away. You want that shelf life or whatever, where they're going to keep using it, and you want to make it appropriate. Things that you might use, like I've got one that's actually two. One is a regular thing where you check the air pressure in your car tires. One is bigger. It's the size of a little tire, and it's hard, and it came in a nice case and all this, but it was a little bit too overboard. It wasn't really useful. Where maybe just one, but I'm going to keep it in my car because it's the size of a pen or whatever, and those are, every time I pick it up, I use it, and so you want to make sure that they're useful. That's probably the biggest thing. Disposable things. They're, again, you want shelf life is the big aspect with that. So.
Yep, and promotional products is something that will never go away in advertising. Companies and universities, anywhere you go, anywhere that you like stop for on a vacation spot, there's always going to be some sort of promotional thing that you're going to be grabbing.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And one thing I want to mention, I know I've mentioned this in another one of the chapters, is the pharmaceutical sales. Those ad reps, you know, those medical device people, or you know, just dealing with in the pharmaceuticals, they used to give out all kinds of stuff and take care of the doctors, and they've really cut back on that by law. The law is, you know, said they can't do as much. They still have some stuff, but not to the extent what they used to.
All right, and kind of it goes off of the promotional side of things of what a marketer or an advertiser does, but Yellow Pages is another form of advertising, and I did bring in an example of a yellow book, but we should all be familiar of what a yellow book is and where we can find one in a telephone book. But the yellow book is often referred to as a directional medium because the ads aren't actually there to create awareness about a product or a brand or company. It's more or less once a person knows what they're looking for, they'll go to the yellow pages to try and find it. And I know myself, I don't remember the last time I opened up a yellow book. Probably when my car is breaking down, I needed to find a towing place.
Right.
So it's always it's one of those things that's always gonna be there when you need it, and it will be like efficient and effective for you. But it's something many people don't always grab.
And they're not going. And even the yellow book, they're themselves going into the digital.
Yep,
you know,
definitely.
web and even their little logo. You know, do you remember their catchphrase? Okay, let your fingers do the walking. Is kind of, you know, let your fingers do the walking through here, and so even their logo makes it look like there's a couple fingers, but you know, they were very strong, and now they've got competition with Dex and you know all these others, but the online is really going to change. You know, the yellow book market, they say it's a $31 billion market. You know, and you know what they bring in with ads, and so it's a big aspect of advertising.
And it's always easy to go through. Like when you turn like every single thing that I see, it like changes the layout of it depending on if you're looking for a restaurant. The restaurants here have some specific border that goes along with eating, so that's like their little side note or whatever of how they get their points across.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages, disadvantages. I was just going to say lawyers, and I'm glad there was one. Usually there's a lawyer on the back page.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Or on the inside cover, or you know, some of those types of things. And that's because you're in jail. Okay, that's the first thing that they give you. You probably don't have your cell phone or anything, but they'll give you a book, and so attorneys are a big part of the yellow book and looking at that and in their numbers. And I know even the telephone number. I've known a couple local attorneys that split apart, but the telephone number was so important. It's big, prominent on the back. So who got to keep that number? You know, which attorney got to keep that number? And because it's one of the disadvantages of this is it's printed usually once a year, okay, or it stays around for a couple years, and so the numbers don't change. But online they can change, a lot faster.
Every day, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's one of the disadvantages. But some of the advantages, it's the wide availability. It's action oriented, like you said. You're picking this up to do something. And so the consumer is actually going to do something, and the good chance of them wanting a certain item or service or something like that. So the cost, relatively low. I've always thought they were pretty high. When I was in business and doing this, to me it seemed like again, it's online and you can search things relatively easy. But for like an attorney or some of them, the costs are relatively low. But if you're a real specific type of a business, I don't, in my opinion, not quite as, beneficial as say a car, breaks down. Okay, there's a service that's used, but for like us, or sport specific training, it's real. People are probably going to take their time and research it a little bit more, out ahead. So again, the frequency, they're on there, people keep coming back to it. It's non-intrusive. Okay, people, you're not pushing ads in their faces, like you said. And people, it seems like they trust a book a little bit more than they do other aspects of advertising. So those are some of the advantages. Some of the disadvantages, again, it's local. This is Mason City, just in itself.
Yep.
And, you know, the lead times, it takes a long time to get them printed. You know, again, it takes a year. You know, they usually don't change them up, but, you know, every year or so. Not a lot of color. If you look inside, the creativity, little color, but mostly black and white print. A little bit of yellow thread here now and then, but for the most part. And then the size requirements, you look at, you only have certain size ads. And so there's a lot of those things that go in there. So the yellow book, yeah, it's good, as well as the promotional products. So it's kind of what we talked about here in the second segment.
Yep.
So we'll end it here and we'll move on to the next one.
All right, so now we're going to kind of end things now that we've talked about some of the traditional types of marketing and going into more of the promotional side. Now we're going to...
I had to keep the Iowa Hawkeye out here. We have to promote the Hawkeyes. They need all the help they can get.
That's funny.
Okay.
But now we're going to kind of go into branded entertainment and talk a little bit about product placement and product integration, which is something that, once again, we're seeing constantly while we're watching TV, watching movies, doing video games, watching music videos, all of those sorts of things. And really kind of going down the line, product placement is when products are placed in a TV and or movie in order to gain exposure about their brand. And with product integration, it's a more involved form of product placement in which the product is either woven throughout the sort of program itself, or it kind of takes over the program altogether. And I know an example that I had written here for product integration was the TV show America's Next Top Model, which a lot of people know it as like people wanting to become models, but really it's all about becoming that face on the cover page of CoverGirl. So really CoverGirl has kind of taken over what America's Next Top Model is all about. So to me that kind of was showing product integration. And then, I don't know, do you want me to talk about my example of product placement?
Yeah,
okay.
that'd be great.
A great one that I found that talked about or showed product placement was the movie Transformers. And I've seen the movie a couple of times, and when I found a YouTube video that kind of went down and listed and showed the clips of product placement, I had no idea some of those were even in there. And I wrote down a couple of them, but one that really stuck out was how USA Today was in there. Oh. And I had no idea that that was in there. And it's just kind of like made me wonder, like, how much money did USA Today put into just so they could be put in a movie when they just had that small little clip of just a person reading their newspaper. So to me, like, I don't know, you can probably give a couple of other examples, but really, like, how successful is product placement and product integration, like cost-wise and everything, just what makes it stand out. Yeah.
Do we want to show that clip real quick?
Yeah, we can do that.
We'll show that clip real quick and then look for things like, I know you've got a few. I remember, you know, the iPod, you know, someone using an iPod or the computer, an HP computer. You mentioned USA Today. Do you have any other ones that they can kind of look for as they're watching this clip?
There was Mountain Dew was in there. Xbox was even in there, even though they were just throwing it. But then eBay and Burger King were some of the other ones. And then, of course, like the Hummer and the Cadillac and GMC, some of the other cars were in there as well. So just
take a minute here. We'll watch the clip, and then you can you know, look at some of these examples within product placement.
Yep.
Okay, all right. And then you want to just go into me with advantages, disadvantages?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
And then just say, well, that was a good clip. Okay.
Well, that was a good clip to see on product placement. Now, Shane will kind of talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of using either product placement or product integration.
Yeah. You know, a lot of the advantages, okay, there's more of an increase in movies and DVDs and people watching video. So the exposure is high, okay, and a lot of people watch them. And so yeah, there are millions of people that watch these, and so high exposure. The frequency, again, number of times within a film, maybe a certain character uses a certain product over and over, or, I go back to like even like E.T., was it Reese's Pieces, I mean, that was decades ago, and getting the E.T. to come out with a piece of candy, or, so you start associating and getting those products with that, but associating himself with a star, a lot of times people, I think the number is like 75% where they make that connection with the product because of the star that's using it, and so the recall is higher. The cost. Sometimes the costs are expensive. Sometimes they're cheap. You might just give them like an iPad or a computer or something to use in there, or maybe they actually pay a lot to use it. Like USA Today, they could go buy it for $0.25, but USA Today probably paid a lot to be in that. Yeah. So those are a lot of it's accepted because of the star factor in the movies, and people are using it on a day-to-day basis. That's the acceptance factor, which is really big. A lot of the disadvantages, the absolute cost, we talked about how many it's reaching, the cost goes down, but a lot of times it costs a lot to put it in there. So it's per imprints or per 1,000 people that it is. Lack of control, a lot of the movies use it, they might use it negatively, that you might not want it to be used negatively, or like you said, they threw the Xbox or crashed it or something, in that clip. So those are some of the things, the lack of control with it. It's a high level, another disadvantage, a lot of competition. I'm sure Apple and HP they're always competing against each other, with that. And then a lot of times it gets to be too much if it gets cluttered. And so you got, sometimes it's good, you just got to make sure. And even there's some extremes of some of the disadvantages of a show like Undercover Boss. Okay, basically just one advertisement for that, even though it's a different show, but they're really promoting their company. So those are some of the things that for product placement you need to look out for.
Sometimes it just gets to be just a little too much. Like after watching the clip from Transformers and like reading through all the different ones, like that's a lot of different products to be putting into like a 2-hour movie. So it's just kind of like how much money they actually put into it, and it just, and
the people that need to work to go get the products and place them, and there's a lot that goes into that. Some of them that too was how do you use. I remember like Dunkin' Donuts and Good Will Hunting. They're holding the coffee cup, so it's just like Dunkin' Donuts. It was almost like it wasn't real. And it was almost too fake. And so films got to be aware of that too. Of how they're using that. So.
Just like America's Got Talent, how they just have like the cups for Coca-Cola or Pepsi, whatever those are. It's like, here, we're just gonna set this in front of you, drink out of it, and then we're gonna make millions of dollars.
Yeah, there's actually some that I've been involved with, especially on press conferences, where both negative and I remember like an athlete or an athletic director or somebody in an interview like this, and they put a Gatorade on the counter, or maybe it was Propel, a different brand, but the school was sponsored, say, by Pepsi, which is associated with Gatorade, where you've got the other one of the other kinds that might be associated with a different competitor, and so you got to get those out of the screen. You got to make sure that even though that they're there. So you got to be aware of all of that.
All right, so then the very last thing that we're going to talk about is guerrilla marketing, and this is something that some advertisers, especially smaller businesses, are starting to go into because it's costs them less, and to them it's gaining more exposure. Whether it's ethical or not is a question that we can leave up to you guys to think about as well. But really, when kind of breaking down guerrilla marketing, it's an innovative and unexpected way for these businesses just to kind of quickly get their brand or their image across. And we see it in like the most unusual ways. When I was like doing a little bit more research about guerrilla marketing, I came across how some of these ads were just kind of disturbing, just like some of the things that they did. And I know I put up a couple pictures that we can probably post for you guys to see as well, that was just kind of like what made them think of this, but to them it's helping them, but
Yeah.
really like
Yeah.
isn't necessary.
Yeah.
And
Body painting, and I mean, there's all
yeah.
kinds of different aspects, with some of these ads that you look at them and you say, wow, that's out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little bit. And especially like sometimes guerrilla marketing is even going to the extreme of graffiti marketing.
Yeah.
And that is kind of showing the unethical side of using it because they're damaging things where they're like, well, we're just trying to promote. Well,
Right.
you're really like hurting the city that you're doing because they have to pay in order to get it
Right.
like removed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I think the book used an example too of and I don't know what it was, but it was something on a highway where it shut everything down, and they had to have fire people come in and to kind of clear everything out. There wasn't any really damage or anything, but traffic backed up, and there were so many issues, and that company ended up having to pay $1 million for all the services. It was like in New York, one of the big cities, and it caused such a big problem of more so just slowing people up, but having to bring in all the people to direct traffic and all of that, and to clean it up. It was could cost that company a lot of money.
And even like another example that I saw that was kind of extreme was these two cartoonists. I don't remember exactly where it is, but I have a picture of what they were using, and it was just like these small little cartoon figurines that kind of like lit up, and what they did was they put it on these buildings throughout this city, and to them it was something simple and kind of out there that grabbed people's attention. But this, I believe, was done a little after 9/11 happened, so then a lot of people thought it was like a bomb or like terrorists or something, so it caught it there's a lot of controversy that happened, and to them it was something so small, which a lot of them are like, it's just our way of doing marketing, but it's really like hurting those around them.
Yeah, that quest for publicity it's so big, and people push the limits
A little too far.
a little bit too far. There's the old saying of any publicity is good publicity. The book says no. Yes, I think that is the case, that you can definitely damage yourself. But if you're a company that wants to get their name out, okay, it's a good way to get your name out, and then do you come back afterwards and try making up for it, or so there's not all publicity is good. And it's just going to keep getting bigger. Guerrilla marketing,
it's just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just beginning, and especially with the internet, and how in technology, what aspects haven't even been thought of yet that's out there. So, so guerrilla marketing is an interesting and something to keep your eye on as you're out there, and looking at the ethical issues is important.
And then just kind of going back, like, is it okay, or is it smart for marketers and advertisers to be going away from the traditional marketing of just doing a simple billboard or in-store media? Should they be steering away from those and going more in the guerrilla marketing or digital side, or is it something like just to do in moderation?
I mean, it's, again, image of your company. Do you want to be a very professional, we're going to do traditional advertising, or are you going to keep pushing the line a little bit, or do you get into the mainstream new type of guerrilla marketing? Again, it's going to come back to the company, of what their image, I think, is the biggest thing, what they want their image to be like.
Okay. And that kind of wraps up things, but of course there's other forms of advertising that we didn't even cover here today, and some of them from the book, as you read it, can be through movie theaters and what you see in there, airplanes and like those type of aerial advertisements, and a little bit more with the transit. We didn't talk about those, but those are also
bus wraps and all the things that are out there that there's a lot of different.
So.
Okay, well, thank you, and enjoy chapter 13.